Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American Wild West. Each Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be sharing a historical legend and a living legend. Someone from history and someone living that Western lifestyle today, keeping it alive for the future generation. We hope you'll join us on Thursday. If not, we'll see you on the trail. Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity. And today, this is episode 42. And today, we're going to be doing a tribute. This past week, we lost a great cowboy, a great black cowboy, Clarence Gilyard Jr. Clarence was an actor, he was a professor, but he was a cowboy at heart. He had that cowboy spirit and that cowboy heart. Most of y'all will remember him because he was Chuck Norris's sidekick on Walker, Texas Ranger for like 10 years on television. Before that, he was on some other shows, and we're going to walk through that in a little bit. But I wanted to tell my Clarence Gilyard story. Clarence was, I guess it was right in the middle of Walker, Texas Ranger, and I guess they'd had the show for about 4 or 5 years. And Clarence actually moved here and lived here for a while during the show. Sheree J. Wilson, his co-star, also lives here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so they were great friends. They were on the previous show, Matlock, together. And then I think the very last stage production that he was in, it was Driving Miss Daisy, and he played Hoak, the driver, and Sheree played Miss Daisy. So a lot of connections there. So we appreciate everybody that might be joining us today. If you would go to Wild West Diversity to our YouTube channel. Always subscribe. Any of our shows that we do here, they always get archived to our Wild West Diversity YouTube channel. So if you'll go to YouTube and click on that, or put in Wild West Diversity and click on our channel, you can subscribe. You have to click on one of the videos first. So if you click on home, go ahead and click over to live, LIVE, because that's where you'll find the 40 plus videos when you click on the live menu at the top. And then you can join, you can subscribe. That red subscribe button will come up, and we appreciate that very much. If you would like more information through our newsletter or e-newsletter, that's wildwestdiversity.com. That's wildwestdiversity.com, and you can join us there. And if you're a podcaster, check us out. Look for Wild West Diversity or Liz Lawless or something like that on your favorite podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, Apple. Any number. We have about 11 different podcast platforms as well that the show goes out to. So now I got my commercial out of the way. Certainly, we appreciate y'all watching. We appreciate you going back and watching the recordings as well, and increasing our views there. That's really helpful, and telling other people about the show if you like it. So today we're paying tribute to Clarence Gilyard Jr. And like I say, Clarence came out to the Cowboys of Color Rodeo. If you've seen any of our episodes, you know we have a strong partnership with the Cowboys of Color Rodeo. It's been working with them for over 30 years. And as a celebrity, as Jimmy Trevette, he was James Jimmy Trevette on Walker, Texas Ranger with Chuck Norris, Sheree J. Wilson, and Noble Willingham. They were kind of the main 3 or 4 characters of the show all those years. And then later on, they added a couple of additional characters, younger characters. But Clarence came out to the rodeo, and he was supposed to be there for about an hour signing autographs. And he stayed 2 hours. I mean, he stayed until the last person left, until the last photo left. I mean, I think he ran out of photos, and then people were still there, and they wanted to take pictures and things. That was kind of at the early days of cell phones and stuff, but people did want to take pictures. And so he stayed an extra hour or two and just talked with people. And he was the nicest guy. We asked him if he wanted a beer. No, he didn't drink. He didn't smoke. Didn't do drugs. He was a very Christian, very spiritual person. which is a little bit unusual, in Hollywood and entertainment. But he was a great guy, and we had just a great time with him. And I'm glad that I have that memory, and we have those photographs of him when he was there with us. And so I think we've got a video here too that we can show, and we'll kind of walk through. So there's Clarence. You probably recognize his face because, like you say, this was not the only. These were not the only shows that he was on. He was an actor for most of his life. The last few years of his life, he was actually a professor. You can see him here. He was at the University of Nevada, I think, and he was in the film school, and he was teaching film writing and screenwriting, and of course they are just devastated. The campus and the students, they all loved him so much because he was such a great guy. So, but Clarence started out, I guess he probably maybe started in stage, but then he got into the movies. And he was in Top Gun. He was one of the Mavericks in Top Gun, not the Maverick, but he was in that show with Tom Cruise and the other guys. And it was one of the young recruits. And so that was maybe one of his first movies. And then later on, most of us remember him from Die Hard. He played the computer genius. It was trying to break into the vault there. You can see that picture there. And so, he kind of moved along there, and he did movies off and on over the years. But, I think he really enjoyed television a lot more. He was in Matlock, and that was probably one of his major roles. He played a lot of guest roles on other shows all through this time and then he got this recurring role on Matlock, and you can see him there with Andy Griffin and Sheree J. Wilson. Sheree J. Wilson was I think Matlock's daughter. She played the attorney, and so I guess that's how they met. And then later on, when they were looking for somebody that to be on the show with them, with Chuck Norris, with Walker Texas Ranger, Sheree had gotten the part, and I would not be surprised if she didn't recommend Clarence Gilyard for the Jimmy Trevette role. And then you can see Mr. Noble Willingham there too as well. So it was a great show. It filmed here in Dallas for 10 years. I mean, Dallas was going on too, but this was about marshals. This was about lawmen. And Clarence Gilyard was, in my mind, the first Black Cowboy Marshal television hero on TV, because there weren't any Black Cowboy heroes on TV. There were white cowboy heroes. There were a lot of them that came along, and we know all their names. But Clarence Gilyard, right here, you see him. He was, and that's what I remember. That's how I remember him, because when I met him, this is what he looked like here. He had his white cowboy hat on. He's all decked out in his cowboy stuff, and like I say, was just the nicest guy. And so certainly sad to see him go, but we know he's having a great time in heaven with those of us that gone before, with Herb Jeffries and some other folks. But we want to pay tribute to Clarence today and his movies and the people that he worked with. But like I say, I think television really was his home, and he liked that so much, and he spent so many years there with these great shows that we remember, like Matlock and Walker Texas Ranger, and then it was in the movie. I guess they had a follow-up movie, and then he also was in some other movies like Left Behind. That's a very religious movie. He was in Left Behind too. I think he played the preacher in that movie. And so, as you can see here are some of the movie posters. Top Gun. Charles, what was the first thing you saw Clarence in? So our co-host here, our man on the ranch, Charles Flores Hearn, is here with us too. Die Hard, we got, that was probably the first thing I really remember him in. I don't know that I really remember, I didn't know him when he was in Top Gun, but I did, when he was in Die Hard, I thought he was great. I thought he played a great character. And even though he was on it for a very short time, he kind of stole the scenes, and the other, and the other guys are great. I mean, I love the bad guy from, from Die Hard. I thought he was fabulous. That was the first time I'd ever seen him. But I thought when Clarence was in the scenes that he kind of stole the show. And there you see, that's the poster or the movie poster for Left Behind. And there were two of those movies, and he was in both of those movies as well. So anyway, but so that's great. But yeah, Charles, what do you remember? What did you remember seeing him first on? Was it Walker, Texas Ranger, or was it one of these other shows?
It was a Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
because we played it every single morning, and that's how I knew him through his mom. And then my grandpa said that he came to the rodeos a lot.
right, yeah, yeah. Like you say, he did. He came out and participated, signed autographs, was a grand marshal, I guess, 1 year too, and rode around in the truck. And but yeah, he just stayed down there with us. And I forgot, you knew his mother, right, or his?
Yes, so she was my tennis coach in West Dallas at a park called Keast Park. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah,
She
sure.
was
It's
our
the biggest
tennis
park
coach.
around.
And
Right.
this was
My
back
brother
when I was
played.
like 7 or 8.
Right. Our my brother played BB baseball. You know, Little League baseball over there. BBI baseball is what it was called. And we played at Keith Park every week. We went out there to the
Yeah.
big. They had like 6 or 8 fields out there. It was a huge park and in South Dallas, beautiful parks and for sure. So so that's great. So like I say, Charles has a double up connection. You know, he was playing tennis and then he met Clarence. I don't. Did you meet him later on? You were probably at the rodeo, but I don't know that you actually kind
Yeah,
of
I was
met
probably
him.
like 5 or 3.
Right? Yeah, yeah. You were probably still a baby then. So
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, I don't know if we got any other photos. We've got. Are we down to our last ones there? Yeah. So there's Matlock. That's Clarence and Andy Griffin and Sheree, and then of course Chuck Norris here with Walker Texas Ranger. So. And then again, you know, just a couple of different shots because, like you say, this show was on for so long. But that's the face. That's the face we remember. We want to pay tribute to Clarence Gilyard Jr. And like I say, you know, once he kind of left the movie and the television business, he became a professor over in Las Vegas at the university there, and you know, it's so great to have him and be teaching those students, you know, the next generation. He was always concerned about other people and things that were, you know, going on there. So, so thanks so much for that. We thought we might have some other folks stopping by, but if they do, we'll drop them in. If not, you know, Charles and I'll just talk about that a little bit. Did you have a favorite episode, or was it just all the episodes? You just watched them
My
every
favorite
day. Huh?
episode. My favorite episode was at Billy Bob's whenever Trevette, because
Yep,
that was his
yep.
name on Walker Texas
Brianna,
Ranger.
shut my door. Yeah.
Whenever he tried to be a burl man, and his stunt double was Leon Coffey. Yeah, his stunt double was a Leon Coffey, and I didn't know that until like
Right.
later on.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he was a
So
burl
Leon,
man at Billy Bob's, which is in Fort Worth, Texas, and that's where they do
just down the
their
road.
bull riding.
Right. So anyway, yeah, and that episode was great. Like you say, Leon Coffey, a great bull fighter from San Antonio, Texas. He's a
Mm-hmm.
Texas boy too. We got a lot of these black cowboys that came out of Texas, and Leon, the probably one of the few African American barrel men, rodeo clowns as we call them, and he was always great at telling the joke too. He taught humor and you know, courageous skills or you know, bullfighting skills, you know, in the ring. He actually has a school or had a school for many years where he taught other bullfighters. Kevin Woodson, our rodeo announcer, he started out as you know, as a bullfighter, as a clown, basically what we'd call a rodeo clown. I mean, in our mind, they're not rodeo clowns. If your audience sees them, they think they're
Mm-hmm.
rodeo clowns,
Yeah, they
but we
think it's
call them
radio.
bullfighters because basically they're there to protect the riders, the bull riders. So if a bull rider gets bucked off these bulls, the rodeo bullfighters, the clowns, they're there. Oh, and there's my buddy Chris Arnold. So I know Chris is short on time. So Chris, we were just paying tribute today to the wonderful Clarence Gilyard, and I'm sure you met him over the years or not. But did you have a favorite movie or a favorite television show?
No, I just wanted to say that the man made a tremendous impact on a lot of kids' lives, especially kids. when people talk about platforms today, especially in the world of social media, and everybody's talking about a platform or making sure that they have the opportunity to utilize it well. He was on television and he made movies. And back then, that was the biggest platforms in the world, because the bottom line was more people saw the movies or saw the television shows, the Westerns, and they could recognize somebody that looked like them and realize that, wait a minute, not only is there an opportunity to do that now, it's not too late, but guess what? There's a lot of black cowboys back in the day. There was a lot of people of color who were, part of the reason why the West was won.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And it's why, like you say, why we have all the towns and the cities and the places that we have today. But there just weren't a lot of heroes, were there? You didn't have a lot of black cowboy heroes when you were growing up, did you, Chris? Especially not on the television and the movies.
Exactly. Now, the crazy part about it is my family, on my mama's side, from a little black town in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
Little black town called Clearview, and all the black families that moved to Clearview married the Native Americans that lived in Clearview. Thus, I'm light-skinned black. So we've always been a part of that relationship and the whole 9 yards. And I've always known about, cowboys of color and rodeos and, everything about the wild, wild West growing up. That was always a part of my life because I was a little kid in Oklahoma.
Right, because you grew up in Oklahoma. And, but for kids that grow up in the city or grew up in other parts of the country, if they didn't grow up in Texas or Oklahoma or Colorado or maybe even Wyoming, Montana, that was it.
Yeah, let me put it like this too. We were talking about the platforms and, social media today and the whole 9 yards. So imagine this. Back in those days, there were people who looked at cowboys as superheroes like Iron Man or the Marvel comics. It was like, that's how it's like, you couldn't believe it. It's like people ride a horse. I mean, you could go down the list of things that didn't seem like it was, because like I said, in the cities, in the early 20th century, no one thought of the Wild West or, cowboys and Native Americans as like real. It's like, that's got to be, ancient history, or it's kind of like saying, Egyptians in Egypt and pharaohs and biblical days or Vikings. You could go on and on and on to say the cowboys and Indians or Native Americans is like, okay, that's not even real. It's like, so, somebody that's in a Western, that's like saying, okay, John Wayne, or, you just go down the list.
Right.
It's like bigger than life. And so if you're black or a person of color, to see someone that was like you in that sphere is kind of like saying, wow, Black Panther, the movie.
Yeah, that's right. He was the Black Panther of our day for sure, like you say. And so, and especially as a marshal and like you say, the good guy. I mean, there might have been a few places or a few movies or a few things, like you say, when they were the bad guys, and certainly Die Hard, he was on the bad guy team, but I think he stole the show there. I mean, that some of the every scene he was in, he was good. Yeah, I mean, you were just glued to it, and that's the kind of
he had charisma.
Yeah, he had that charisma, and he had it in person too, like you say. And he was just, like you say, the nicest guy. He came out to the rodeo at Mesquite at the finals, and I was telling the guys before you got on, he was supposed to be there an hour, and he stayed 2 or 3 hours signing autographs until he ran out of pictures, and then he took pictures with people and stood there and talked to people until
the last. Genuine.
Yeah, he was the same as he was on the TV. I mean, pretty much. When you met him, he was a nice guy on these last shows, and then he was, and he was such a nice guy in person. So, but I appreciate you, Chris, jumping on, because like you say, that's what we want to do here. We want to highlight those heroes, and we appreciate you. We know you're kind of a living legend, a sports legend. You're not as much of a
time just flies. Time flies. But I had to pop in. I had to pop in to show some respect. And again, anything you ever need, Liz, you always got me.
All
you
right.
guys, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Yeah, so like you say, and Chris, Chris grew up, like you say, watching the television, watching the movies, because his mother went to school with Cleo Hearn. We talked about Cleo, Charles, his great grandfather, here on the show a lot, and And Chris's mom, and Cleo knew each other from a young age, from their teenage years. And, I think when Chris came to town here, of course, Cleo helped him, get acclimatized and be sure, when he got his first job here, and checked on him and stuff like that. So I know Cleo was a mentor to Chris and his broadcast business. And for those of you who don't know, Chris was been in the broadcast business all these years. He was on the #1 show, which was called the Skip Murphy Show on K104 for years, probably 10 or 12 years. And they were the #1 show across markets in Dallas, Fort Worth, and all across the country. Really, they were one of the top African-American shows that were on the morning show. They were a morning show, and Chris was part of that team. He still has his own sports show on the radio on Saturdays. He's been the voice on the Cowboys and reported for them. And today he works for the Dallas Mavericks, the basketball team. So as a commentator and as a sports announcer and doing a lot of their voice work for them. So a lot of times he's in the studio and he's going in and out, and that's probably what he was doing right now. He just probably jumped out for a minute and then he had to jump back in and go do some other interviews and some recordings. So appreciate him. And I guess, like you say, there was, it's that second and third generation coming on. I know that Charles is friends on social media with Dakota Norris. That's Chuck Norris's son.
Yeah,
and we've talked about these next generations coming on. It's really interesting and fun for me, who can see these second and third generations coming on. And I think he does some acting. He obviously does martial arts. He some things like that, following in his dad's footsteps, same way that Charles is following in his grandparents, great grandparents' footsteps. And so it is. And I remember that when they filmed over there at Billy Bob's, and like you say, and then they had the rodeo at Cottown Coliseum, and like you say, whoever they were trying to catch, and
them running.
Clarence suited up.
Mm-hmm.
He was all made up too, wasn't he, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, the stunts were done by Leon Coffey and
Leon Coffey.
Clarence. And Leon was he was one of the only black bullfighters, clowns as you call them, for the PRCA, the Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association, and he won that honor as the best bullfighter for many years, multiple years. He was acknowledged, and he was at the finals. And the finals are going on right now. The NFR, the National Finals Rodeo, is going on in Las Vegas right now. Our friend Abe Morris that we've had on the show before, My Cowboy Hat Still Fits, out of Denver, Colorado. Abe's out there right now meeting people and greeting people and just experiencing that whole Western.
Get some cookies from
rodeo stuff. Yeah, we need to get those tickets for sure. So that'll be going on. We do have, we're looking at a new rodeo schedule for 2023. Hopefully we have coming up in the next few months. We're going to have the Diaz family. They are fifth generation Mexican charros. Jerry Diaz, Gerardo Diaz, El Charro de Corazon, the Charro of the Heart. His son Nick is another friend of Charles's. Nick is coming on. I guess he's about 19 or 20, and
19.
He's a horse trainer in his own right, and a horseman, and tremendous horse skills and training horses and working with horses, and then entertaining and bringing in the Mexican rodeos. They do those all across the country, as well as yeah, and coming on like his dad. And his mom Stacy was a part of an equestrian family as well, and she was a trick rider, and she performed over the years, I think in the early days with maybe some of the circuses, and then with the women's trick riding groups that they have. And so he comes by it honestly. He's got it in both sides of his family. that love of horses and that love of equestrian activity and stuff. So We appreciate that people are listening. We were telling Charles, we were telling people to go to our website. What else we got coming up? We may be going out to do some ranches. We got some. We're going to be talking to one of the farriers. A farrier, for those farriers, if you don't know what a farrier is a person that does the horseshoes for a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Many horses have to have shoes, especially if they compete, things like that, because they put those shoes on their hoofs to protect their feet and stuff, especially if they're going to be, because sometimes they're walking on concrete and sometimes it's grass and sometimes it's dirt. Sometimes they're in the arena. In the arenas, we always have a lot of dirt, heavy dirt. We have to put in extra dirt when we go to coliseums or when we go places because we don't want those horses to be hurt. And, and so we have that extra dirt in the arenas. It's piled up. I don't know. It's got to be like 10 or 20 inches or 30 inches, 50 inches, something like that.
Every time you walk, you got to pick up your feet.
Right. And then they're picking up their feet and walking. So we're going to be doing that. We'll probably have some other musicians on. We're talking to some musicians. There's a cowboy museum down in Houston, outside of Houston, Texas. And we'll be talking to the gentleman that operates that. He actually was a country music star and performed with some well-known acts, and then he lost his voice. I don't know. I think he might have had some kind of a cancer thing or something, but he lost his voice, and so he can't sing anymore. But he always loved cowboys, and he's got this whole museum that he's created to keep that cowboy and Western lifestyle alive in Houston. So we'll be talking with him. And then Charles, like you say, we were talking earlier about the possibility of maybe doing basically Clarence has been a living legend for us all these years. And now he's transitioned into a historical legend.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to keep that legend alive. We want to keep telling his story because, like you say, he was that first African-American, that first black cowboy to play the good guy, to be the marshal, in the kind of in the shadow of Bass Reeves, the black marshal that we've talked about on this show, that had I guess 3,000 men that he outlaws that he brought to justice during the territory out of Arkansas for the Arkansas judge, and he went into the Indian Territory in Texas, what's now Texas, because these were not states. In 1800, these were not states. So Texas wasn't a state. Oklahoma wasn't a state. Yeah, they were just little towns all across, and and so outlaws. We were outlaws, or Indians, or bandits, or and they were all colors. They were white bandits. They were, he even went and got his son because I think he killed somebody, and he brought him in. So and he couldn't read and write. That's the most amazing thing to me. He had to have somebody else read him the warrant, describe the person to him, and he still brought them back in, the right guys. He didn't bring the wrong guys in. He found the right guys, and he brought the right ones in. So some great historical stories, some living legends still we'll have back on here again. We'll be continuing our show. We're here every Thursday at 5 p.m. Charles, like you say, after the holidays here, he's going to be going back out on the trail, and he's going to find us some ranch things. He's going to go out and talk to some ranchers. We've got some friends, the Hatley brothers, and they rope with us. They're calf ropers too, and they participate at the rodeo. But they also have thoroughbred horses. They quarter horses. I mean, they run quarter horses at the racetrack, and they did very well this past year with their racetrack horses. So his family, the Hatley family, not only has rodeo cowboys, they have this history in racing, of training horses, black trainers. We've talked to Doug Smiley, one of our other black trainers for the Tennessee walking horses. Not too many of these guys around that train these horses in these other areas. Rufus Green Sr. that we talked about, he was part of the 100 black cowboys that went to New York, but he was a trainer here in Texas, and he not only trained calf ropers and calf roping horses, he trained barrel racers and barrel racing horses. And so, lots of interesting stories. We hope you'll go to our website. We hope you'll go to our YouTube channel at Wild West Diversity, that you will check us out there. You can find these other recordings with these great people that we just talked about. Their stories are on our Wild West Diversity YouTube channel. So go there. You'll hear some stories about historical legends, and you'll hear about these living legends. So, well, Charles, thanks for coming on. Is there any last thing you want to say for our viewers, and then I'll wrap us up.
Yeah. Thank you for Clarence Gilyard for being a role model in our lives, especially, being at 20 years old. He was like the main, like our role model on TV that we looked up to. So thank him for doing that. And he'll leave a good road for the next guy who comes up and takes his place.
Yeah, we'll be looking for that next guy. Who's that next person going to be that takes on the mantle of creating this history for us? So, well, this has been Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity. We thank Chris Arnold for jumping in and sharing the impact that he thinks Clarence made on the world and as the first Black Cowboy hero. And we wish you good luck, and we'll see you on the trail, or we'll see you back here next Thursday at 5 p.m. Thanks so much. Hello, this is Liz Lawless, your host for Wild West Diversity, where we tell the rarely and untold stories of multicultural contributions to the settling of the American Wild West. Each Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be sharing a historical legend and a living legend. Someone from history and someone living that Western lifestyle today, keeping it alive for the future generation. We hope you'll join us on Thursday. If not, we'll see you on the trail.